right, everyone, it's 6 o'clock on the dot. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Thrive series. This is the fourth week. I can't believe we're already over halfway through this series. The time is just flying by. And so grateful for so many of you joining us, especially now that the weather is a lot more tolerable, at least here in Minnesota. I know that there's some folks joining us from around the country, but I think it's been pretty darn cold everywhere. So thank you for being here on a Tuesday night with us. If you haven't been to a Thrive series before, welcome. This is the fourth in our Winter 2021 series. So hopefully you've joined us before. If not, those first three sessions are available on the website, which we will put in the chat box shortly here. So you can follow up on all of those sessions and resources. The Thrive program is a collaboration between Health Fairview and the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota. Like I said, this is the fourth of a 6-week series. So we have 2 weeks left after tonight. So now at this point, I want to turn it over to Kaya Verich to introduce our speaker for tonight. So Kaya, I will let you pop up.
Hi, thank you, Lisa. I'm here today to welcome Dr. Jeff Kendall, and he is currently serving as the Director of Supportive Care Services at Health Fairview, where his time is dedicated to addressing the impact of cancer on individuals and families. He works in program administration, program development, research collaboration, and then most specifically, working directly in patient care. He has spoken nationally and internationally on this topic and has over 40 journal articles published on topics related to psychosocial oncology and cancer survivorship. And we are so excited to welcome him here tonight and really eager to hear him speak about stress management associated with cancer and cancer survivorship. Take it away, Jeff. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. I couldn't be more happy to be here. A lot of times when I introduce myself, I let people know that I've actually worked in 6 different cancer centers in 6 different states. And I often, when I do public speaking, I tell audiences that you can decide for yourself if I was fired 5 times or if I was moving for opportunity. Let's not make that a question at the end of the program, though, because I'm not going to tell the truth. So it's a little bit hard to tell silly jokes when you don't have any feedback, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. So we're going to talk about stress management tonight. And, you know, how much stress management have we seen in the news and in newspapers and in all the different media sources that we have, given that we've had COVID for a year. And what's very interesting to me is that one of the effects of this COVID pandemic, you know, think about what it's done to our society. It has caused a certain level of uncertainty. People are uncertain. It has also caused people to stop working. It's caused people to stay home. It's also, in some cases, you know, caused people not to be near their family. And it's also caused people who have gotten ill to have to visit the medical system. So when you think about all that, it's almost as though COVID has helped our whole country, the whole world, frankly, but definitely our country and the people here and locally in Minnesota. It actually helps them understand a little bit more about what you went through when you went through your cancer, or if you're going through it now. Because all those variables are very similar. Uncertainty, sometimes it affects your family, it affects your career, your ability to work, and the medical system starts making decisions for you, or at least telling you where to go and when to be there. So one of the pieces that I've been talking about actually across the country through podcasts and that type of thing is COVID has helped everyone else to understand a little bit better, a little bit better of some of the stresses that you go through every day. every day. So let's talk a little bit about stress, more on an, I like to call this more of an academic approach. When I was first going to school, long time ago now, long time ago, stress was divided into two groups. And one group of professionals, academics, they thought stress was all the things in the world happening to you. It was traffic. It was a cancer diagnosis. It was chemotherapy or surgery. It was all of the things in our lives happening to us. That was camp number one. So stress was happening to us. Camp number two felt that stress was not what was happening to us, but it was our reaction to it. It's what we thought about it. It's what we felt about it, and how our thoughts and feelings combined. And you can kind of sit there right now and you can see the logic on both sides. And just to show you how bright our academics are, I'm teasing them, by the way, but the reality is it's both. It is your cancer diagnosis, your symptom burden from your treatments, whether it's chemo, radiation, surgery, immunotherapy, or if you're post-treatment, like this is a Thrive is a Survivorship series event. If you're post-treatment, it's whatever late and long-term effects you're suffering. Those are all stressors. The daily suffering that you experienced during treatment, post-treatment, when you're rehabilitating your life, all of that is stress. But it's equally true that you can get two people experiencing the same stressors. One of them is very stressed out about it, and one is not at all. So that's really kind of the hallmark of stress reduction. And this is what we're going to talk a lot about tonight, is how can I help you recognize the stress that you have, and more importantly, recognize how does it affect you. And once we know that, then we can move into, well, how do we help you? So even though I'm looking down at the bottom of my screen, even though we have 67 different people on this call, well, 67 people in the call, there might be more if you have your spouse or caregiver or somebody else on with you, which I hope you do. Even with that number of people, I'm hoping that every single one of you walks away from tonight's meeting knowing how to manage your stress better, you specifically. So we're going to make this very concrete, and we're going to bring it right home to you. Okay, now I can share my screen. There we go. So stress management and cancer survivorship. I've already kind of gone over a lot of this stuff on this very first page, but the second page is really where I want to talk to all of you, and I want to ask you. Now, this sometimes helps, and I'm purposely not showing you. Can you see this screen okay? Okay. And I'm purposely hiding part of this page, so just letting you know. So think to yourself, when was the last time you were very, very stressed out? And as you're kind of pulling up that time and place and what was happening and the people around you, now ask yourself this question: how did I know I was stressed? What was happening to you? I'm going to give you another second to think about that. So now let's think about, how do I know when I'm overstressed? And if you have a piece of paper, you're welcome to write it down. Most people pretty much know that right away. And if you were my significant other, she knows she's really overstressed. Usually I'm in the picture somewhere. I don't know what that's all about. But how do you know when you're overstressed? And this is something I like to share with people. Stress affects us in all phases of our life. Stress can affect us physically. And how many people now are like, oh yeah, I get a headache when I'm stressed. I get a stomach ache when I'm stressed. My neck muscles get tight. Some people, their legs start fidgeting. Some people, when they're really stressed, their face flushes or their ears turn red. So these are physical aspects of stress. When you know you're overstressed, maybe some people are like, I feel my heart pounding and I can feel my blood pressure going up. How many times have we heard somebody say that? So those are the physical manifestations of stress, but stress isn't just physical. Another part of our life that stress can impact is our emotional life. You can be irritable, frustrated, sometimes angry, scared. Not many people are like happy, but some people, for some stressors, they're excited. Like think of a ball player, or the Minnesota Twins or Vikings, or if you're a hockey fan, since it's hockey season, when they're stressed, they're in the middle of a game, they can interpret that as excitement. So far we've addressed physical stress, tight neck muscles, headaches, stomach aches. Some cases people can be constipated or have diarrhea. Some people stop eating. Some people start eating. Oh, and here's some research that I think all of you will find interesting. For the group of people that are stress eaters, when you're eating because of stress, you actually seek out high calorie and high fat foods. So you're going to want to follow that McDonald's meal up with some cheesecake. There's no doubt about it. And if you're doing that, and then ice cream when you're done with that, you're stress eating. So be careful. So that's the physical. There's the emotional piece, the anger, frustration, low frustration tolerance. Matter of fact, last weekend, I have a 7-month-old puppy, but she's 70 pounds. So she looks like a full-grown dog. And I looked at my significant other and I said, our puppy is causing me very, very low frustration tolerance right now. You have got to get her out of my space. See, good communication skills right there. So far we've talked about physical and emotional, but stress can also affect us intellectually. A lot of people are a little bit surprised at first to hear that, but think about it. How do you think stress would affect you intellectually? You can tell I'm used to giving this talk with people in an audience that can yell back at me. Well, the way stress affects us intellectually is it actually kind of slows down our processing speed. So we're problem solving slower. It can actually cause us to have kind of our short-term memory gets all goofed up. So when you go to the grocery store and you're supposed to pick up 5 things and you're standing in the middle of the store and you're like, I have no idea what I was supposed to pick up. I knew I should have written it down. That's stress. Or in some cases, if you forget to pick up your grandchildren at school that day, that's kind of bad. So stress can actually impact our thinking and the way we think. And then finally, stress can even impact us in a social, spiritual way. When we get so stressed, some people tend to isolate themselves. They're like, I'm done. I'm going down to the basement and you're not going to see me till Sunday. Whereas other people, more the extroverted kind of people, they want to go out and be amongst people. They want to get their energy back. But that's how stress can affect us socially as well. And beyond the other obvious factors of if you have a very low frustration tolerance and you're irritable and you can't think straight, well, you might not be one of the best coworkers to everybody else if all of those things are happening to you. Frankly, I've always thought to myself that any physician or nurse that's coming at me with a needle they want to stick in me, I'm hoping they're really very calm and not stressed at all. Not stressed at work, not stressed at home. I find they don't find it funny though if I ask them that. I find the humor in it, but they don't. So here's my point, and this is kind of where we're at in this talk right now. Think about the last time you were really stressed out. And then we followed with the question, how did you know you were stressed? In other words, if you wanted to use like a medical model, what were your symptoms? What were your symptoms of stress? How is stress affecting you? Now, I know I went through physical, emotional, cognitive or intellectual and social, but most people hit many categories. You know, you can have a headache and be irritable at the same time. So don't interpret what I'm saying as you're one or the other. Many people usually experience symptoms in multiple domains, but it's also common that people kind of express their stress in one of those areas more than others. You know, oh, I always get a migraine, or I always get, you know, boy, do I get irritable. So think about that for yourself. This is how we're going to tailor this whole talk to you. But you got to know how you experience stress. Okay. So on this piece of paper, if it was in front of you, you could be writing down, and you could do it either now or later. It doesn't matter when. But you can write down, I know when I'm overstressed because here's my symptoms. This is what happens to me. Okay. And then there's some examples at the end of this page. I probably already talked about all of them. All right. So now let's talk about, on kind of a global manner, and I always love this when I give big talks to groups of nurses. I always say to them when I get to this point, if I'm giving this talk, and I'll just say, how do you manage your stress? Just tell me across the board. Don't hold it back. And more often than not, somebody from the back, it's always from the back, that person back there, we all know who that is. If you're one of them, that's okay. I actually like it. But that person in the back will yell out, go on vacation. And I'm so thrilled for that answer. And I really wish the answer comes like early, like the first one, because you're right. Vacation is a great way to manage stress. However, how many people have 52 weeks of vacation? Now, if you're retired, you might, but you still have other stressors. Well, you know, most working people, we get 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, if you're lucky, of vacation. What about the other 50, 49, and 48 weeks of the year? And that's why, yes, vacation is a great stress reducer, but we want to come up with things that you can do every single day, or the best plan is things you can do every day, things you can do in a week, things you can do each month, and things you can do periodically. Obviously, the vacation idea, unless you're in, even people that are retired don't go on vacation for 52 straight weeks usually. But that's really what we're working towards. But first you got to know, well, how do I reduce my own stress? So here's this sentence here. When I am overstressed, I like to what? And I try to do this when? And this is where I want you to think broadly. You know, the person with the most toys wins on this one. So what do you like to do? Now, the other thing, the other one, I always get this with groups of nurses, and yes, I'm teasing you, Kaya, especially. Groups of nurses, well, someone will always yell out, drink wine. Again, I'm thrilled when it happens. And frankly, if somebody doesn't say it after I get people to tell me their stress reduction, I'll keep pushing until I get it. And this is why. Because yes, drinking wine helps people relax. Let's be honest about it. If it didn't work, so many people wouldn't be using it, right? But the drinking wine, or any alcohol really gives a great opportunity to also say one stress reduction technique. If you only have one, don't overuse it, because any technique that is overused can then possibly create its own problems. That's even true if you say, I'm a runner. Well, you can't run a marathon every day of your life, or your body will break down, right? So any stress reduction technique, if you only got one, you're probably not doing very well managing your stress. So as you're writing down the things that you do to manage your stress, make sure that if you only got one or two, then listen to other people on this call, and hopefully we can help you with that. I'm gonna turn a light on.
Yeah, Jeff, I was just going to jump in. There are some people putting stuff in the chat, so if you're interested in sharing with others, feel free to use that. And just to Jeff's point, we could maybe learn some other tips from other people. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm having trouble seeing that because I'm sharing my screen. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yep, we have some nature comments, doing some breathing, qigong.
Mm-hmm. Yep, walk in nature, qigong, breathing, sit by the lake or the ocean, meditation, transcendental meditation. Perfect. These things are perfect. Cook, read, crochet. Hey, if whoever said play with their dog, I got a dog you can play with. Take it for a week, please. Just kidding. Walking, calling a friend. Yeah. Even though this isn't the Millionaire Show, you can still call a friend. Plan a get together. If it's COVID, you're going to have to wear masks and keep them on your porch, but that's okay. These are great ideas. Yep. And thank you, Kaya, for reminding me to pull that out of my screen. So if you are following along, or you're going to later, I want you to write all this stuff down. Write down all the things you do to manage your stress. One thing that I do now with our new technology and gadgets, I like to pull up comedians on YouTube, and within 5 minutes, I'm laughing my butt off, and then I can get back to whatever I was doing that was stressing me. So, come on. I see there was some more. Yeah. Drink more water and eat more fruits and vegetables. Hug a tree. Yeah. These are all good things. Sleep and rest sometimes. Yeah. A gratitude list. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools, so infrequently used in our society. Yeah. So as you're developing remember, I want all of you to walk away with your own plan when we're done with this. As you're developing your own list, remember, when I'm overstressed, I like to do what, and then how often. So you got to have stuff you can do every day. You got to have stuff maybe you do once a week, things you do once a month or a quarter, and then vacations and a little bit bigger time frames. The one thing I really do also want to share is that there's this giant myth that all stress reduction has to be an hour. If it's go to the gym, you got to be on the treadmill for 45 minutes to an hour. If you're meditating, it has to be an hour. That could not be farther from the truth. You really also want to find stress reduction tools you can do in seconds, minutes. Deep breathing. If you're driving and traffic is bad or people are driving poorly, just some deep breathing works really, really well. I'm going to listening to calm, relaxing music while you're driving in intense traffic. Yep. Or just listening to music. But that's where I kind of brought up that YouTube thing. For me, I can watch a comedian for 5 minutes, and then like my whole persona is back again, and I can go and have fun and do whatever I'm doing, or go back to a stressful job scenario. It doesn't matter. but it doesn't have, I don't have to sit there for an hour. And there's too many things, you know, massages are an hour, and therapy is usually a 45-minute hour. We've just gotten into this habit in our society to make everything an hour. It doesn't have to be. So I always like to emphasize that. So then moving down, so far, what do we got? Well, we've got you thinking about a really stressful time. We now know that stress affects us in multiple domains of our life. Our physical, our emotional, our cognitive or intellectual, and our social. Now we also have a list of how do you manage your stress and how often do you do that? I'm going to check the chat real quick. Yeah, acupuncture's great. That's often an hour. Massage is awesome. That's often an hour. So good things, but also have things that don't take that long. Walking your dog. I always walk mine for an hour, but it doesn't have to be. Well, excuse me, when it was minus 30, those walks were about 3 minutes, but that was because I was protecting her, of course. So that's where we're at with all of this. Now we want your personalized stress reduction plan. How are you going to help you? Yes. So here we go. I've talked about, and this is really just a visual of what I was saying, is you got your physical stress reactions, your intellectual or cognitive, your emotional. I kind of left off the social one. It didn't fit on the page. That's why. I'm just kidding. And then you have your stress reducers. Now, this is where we're tailoring this specifically to you. But there's some wrinkles in here that you have to hear me tell you about. So let's go with physical. That's easy. Let's say you're a physical stressor, meaning you get headaches, you get stomach aches, you get tense. She's a beautiful puppy, by the way. Reading a good book's another good one. Saying no, limit the number of things you're responsible for. I try that at work and Kaya yells at me, so I tried it. So back to, let's say you're a physical stressor. You get tense, you get sore, you get headaches. Then what I want you to specifically think about when you think about your list of stress reducers, which ones affect your body? Because your body is the one carrying the stress. Which ones actually affect your body? Now, here's the wrinkle. Most people, again, when I have an audience, I'll say, what's a physical stress reducer? And what's everyone say? Exercise. And they're right. But not everybody is affected physically, or at least a physical stress reduction through exercise. For some people, it's reading a book because they're just sitting and they relax. Some people, it's a massage. Some people, it's drinking a glass of wine. For some people, it's sending their kids over to the grandparents on Saturday. And for other people, it's having your kids at the house on Saturday. So, and what I'm saying here with this wrinkle is true for all of our stressors. An intellectual stress, a stress that affects the way you think, or a stress that affects your emotions. I can't tell you how many people, especially runners that like to run long, long distances, they'll tell me that running helps them emotionally. So for them, exercise is actually an emotional stress reducer. And again, reading a nice book, watching a movie, you know, I watched the movie The Notebook with a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old girl the other night. Oh my good Lord, they were crying. That was so stressful for me. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, they felt better. You didn't know a lot of bad jokes were coming with this talk, did you? Well, here we are. So that's where the wrinkle is don't fall into that trap of, well, physical stress, I guess I either have to go work out or go get a massage or sit in a hot tub. Maybe, but maybe not. Okay, so how does this work for you? And frankly, if you're a cognitive stressor, one of the best ways to manage it is start making lists. Quit relying on your stressed out brain. Make more lists. I mean, we all giggle because I used to know everyone's phone number in my head, and now I don't know anybody's phone number. It's all in my phone. And then another, so let me give you some of the common ones. Yoga, great physical, great emotional stress reducer. Exercise, good physical, good emotional, good intellectual. Humor, another one. Well, how many times have you ever been kind of had a bad day and you had a huge belly laugh, and next thing you know, you felt like so much lighter and better? So all of these things, and this is where I want you to tailor, and I hope I don't make anybody motion sick, but I'm going to go back up to my other pages just to hopefully make sure I'm being clear. Remember, you listed all your stressors, and then I'm going slow, hopefully not too fast. And then your stress reduction techniques, ones you can do in a few minutes, to an hour, to a day, week, month, year. And now you have to take those stress reducers and tailor them to you. I try to make the analogy where if your arm falls off, you don't take an aspirin. If you have a headache, you take an aspirin. If your arm falls off, you gotta go to the emergency department and get it put back on. It's the same thing with your stress reducers. Match them to how you're feeling stressed. In that way, we tailor this just to you. I'm going to check the chat. I hope this is clear so far. Yeah. And I love that one of limit the number of things you're responsible for. Learn to say no a little more often. There's a psychologist from the late 50s and 60s that said the most dangerous words in the American language are should, must, and have to. He said most of the time when you say I must do something or I have to do something, it's not as true as you think it is. So, and then one other thing I'm going to share with everybody, and this actually came from more of a book I was reading about Buddhist theory one time. And that is, how many times have we heard somebody say, well, I don't have any time to reduce my stress. So Jeff, you're full of it. I don't got time for it. Well, actually, the reality is we have all the time we need. And what do I mean by that? We have all the time we need to do the things that are most important to us. If you think you should be exercising, but you're not because you don't have time, then what you're really saying is everything else you're doing instead of that is more important. I saw somebody on chat, so I'm going to see what they say. Yeah, and that's also true. We all need self-care. And, this is one thing that I talk a lot to caregivers of people that are going through cancer treatment, is they often ignore themselves, and to some degree they have to. But also, if they don't take care of themselves, they're always the pillar holding up the whole family. They can't come crashing down, or the family comes with them. So that's always a tricky conversation with caregivers. But the reason it's tricky is that they often think, well, I don't have time. And if you think you don't have time, then you're thinking that stress reduction has to take hours or a whole day or a whole afternoon, and it doesn't. But if you're just doing little bits, you got to do them all day long. Yeah, I'm going to check in the chat again. Yeah, and that's the other piece. One other final thing I'm going to mention. I'm going to wait on the contract. One other thing I like to say, and I talk to people when I work with them clinically, and this is something that I tell them. Hold on one. And I make a little story about it, so forgive me if I bore you too much. But I, like many Americans, I belong to a gym. They take money out of my bank account right on time every month. I don't even have to think about it. But even when it's minus 30 degrees, I buy special clothes so I can go there, and I get in my car and I drive there and I do my workout thing, and then I drive home. So what am I doing to exercise my body? I'm spending money to buy special stuff, clothes. I pay money to go to a special place. I schedule time to do it. I make myself do it even when it's minus 30 out. We all get that because so many people do it in our society. But how many people exercise happiness, exercise joy, exercise gratitude? And what I mean by that is, how many people create the opportunity to experience joy, love, humor, gratitude? It doesn't matter which word you use, they're all kind of in that same category. And that's what I want to share with you as a stress reducer that you might not have thought of. We make time, spend money, do things for so many other parts of our life, and yet Americans just seem to wander through life waiting to bump into something funny. Ha ha, I heard a funny joke the other day. How come you haven't heard one every day? Go seek them out. I bet I've done this, by the way. If you Google bad jokes, they got all sorts of websites for that. I don't have a website for it. I know a lot of you are saying I should make one. But the point I'm trying to get across is create joy, happiness, gratitude. Create it every day. Don't just wait to bump into it, okay? And that's a great stress reducer in all three of these categories and socially too. So what have we done so far? Let me kind of put a wrap up on all this and then open up for questions. So the first thing I asked you to do is think about when you were really, really stressed. And then I asked you, well, how'd you know you were stressed? Then we went into, well, how does stress affect you? Does it affect your body, your mind, your heart, your spirit? Then we moved into, well, how do you reduce your stress? And then how do you take what you're already doing, and it's like a key in a lock. How do you use it specifically when you're having a certain kind of stress? Then, really importantly, stress reduction does not have to be hours or days long, doesn't have to be a 2-week vacation. And then, if you know anything about behavior change, you always got to have that contract with yourself. I will try to use blank stress reduction techniques blank times per day, and I'll evaluate my progress. This is just something to help. And then writing down your barriers, like what stopped me? My 7-month-old puppy biting my ankle, that stopped me from experiencing gratitude. And that's really how and then how do you overcome those barriers? And that's it. That's what I really wanted to share with you tonight, and how to make stress reduction a tool for you. So I'm going to unshare my screen so that I can see comments and faces better. Okay. And now's the time for any questions.
And Jeff, I think while we wait for some questions to come into the chat, we did have some questions that folks submitted beforehand. One of the first ones was about support groups and whether you recommend them, that the person has heard mixed responses, that they can be positive and negative. If you could talk for a minute about your feelings on that.
Yes, yeah. I actually have that's a great question. I think Kaya knows this. She might have heard me say it before. I actually have a very specific opinion about support groups. You know, when somebody's diagnosed with cancer, it's very common for all the friends and family and acquaintances and social network to, oh, you need to get into a support group. And what I like to remind people as a way of describing my thought about this is that in the medical world, most medicines are 60% effective if you're lucky, even aspirin. And yet everyone thinks everybody should go to a support group. What I think is view support group as a treatment. Try it. If it works for you, keep going. But don't assume that it's must work for you, or that if it doesn't work, that there's something wrong with you or there's something wrong with the group. It just might be a treatment that doesn't work well for you. And that's okay. So that's what I tell people. The other part I do add is if you're going to try a support group, try it twice. Because the first time, and this is particularly true for a face-to-face support group, the first time it's just I'm meeting everybody and hearing what everyone else is talking about. You kind of have to get used to it. So go at least twice and then evaluate. Did that work for me? And if the answer is no, that's okay. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you or the group or anything else. It's just a form of emotional help that just doesn't work for you. And that's my answer. So yes, use them, but also remember they're not for everybody.
Great, thank you. There's another question about the fear of recurrence and how what are some tips for managing stress around the fear of recurrence and stopping worrying so much about that?
You know, what I have discovered in my career, I've met with about, I didn't tell you this, I've probably met with about 21 to 22,000 people with cancer so far. And one thing I like to say is that the minute you're diagnosed with cancer, cancer teaches you to think about it all day, every day. And then while you're going through treatment, you got friends and family, you got caregivers, everyone say, how you feeling? How you doing? You know, you get 6 phone calls in a day, and there's an hour of your day or more talking about cancer. Then when you complete treatment, all your nurses and physicians and doctors and everyone's like, well, quit thinking about it. Well, it's not that easy. So one way to manage fear of recurrence is, in essence, stop talking, stop thinking about cancer. But how do you do that? Because everyone knows if I say, don't think about a pink elephant, the first thing you think about is a pink elephant. So what I tell people to do is it's the appropriate use of avoidance and distraction. When the cancer thought comes and taps you on the shoulder, just be like, no, I don't have time for you. And then you make your brain think about something else. So you go call somebody, you listen to some music, you watch a movie, you go talk to your family or friends, or you get back to work, you get back to knitting, you get back to a stress management tool. The key is you retrain your brain not to spend all day and all night thinking about cancer, or in this case, thinking about, well, what if it comes back? So I actually, this made me laugh. About 10 years ago, I had a woman that said, you know, I have an aunt that I just do not like at all. And I think whenever that cancer thought taps me on the shoulder, I think it's my aunt tapping me on the shoulder. And it's so easy for me to ask her to leave. So if you have somebody in your life that you prefer not to spend time with, that's a really neat tool. Just think of them tapping you on the shoulder. And the other piece to this is we can't prevent our brain, because you have late and long-term effects that remind you of cancer. You wake up with a crick in your neck because of the way you slept, and the first thought is, oh my God, my cancer's back. That's all okay. The goal of this particular technique is not that it so much prevents the cancer from tapping you on the shoulder, but what it does is it prevents the cancer thoughts from sitting on your lap for the next hour after they've tapped you. It's like, hey, hello, cancer's here. Let's go sit on the couch for an hour or two. Oh, heck, let's spend the whole day together. That's what you don't want. So when it taps you on the shoulder, Just be like, no, I don't have time for you. And then it's the appropriate use of avoidance and distraction to get your stuff thinking about something else. I just read the chat. I love the ant analogy. Hey, your name's on there. You better be careful. Your aunt might be on this call too.
I think,
Anyway.
Jeff, that's a really great response. Thank you for addressing that. And this one is semi-related. What about scanxiety? If you could describe what that is, and then perhaps some tips and tricks to prevent that scanxiety.
Yeah, boy, you didn't tell me this group was this savvy, because they're giving me all the hard questions here. So the other part of all this, even with me telling you to use avoidance and distraction appropriately, there's some pieces of all this that are just real. The anxiety you feel when you're going to get a scan is real. That's human, because cancer's a threat. And when humans are threatened, we feel fear, and fear and anxiety are the exact same thing in our brain and our body. It's just a matter of, is the threat right in front of you, or is it more distant? So when you have the scan anxiety, first of all, just be kind to yourself. That's a real human emotion for a very real reason. The results of that scan can have a dramatic impact on your life. And that's even true if the scan's negative. You're like, yay, I'm cancer free, or no evidence of cancer. So let yourself be kind to you. Use the avoidance and distraction technique I just talked about to the degree that it'll work. And also use all your other stuff. But the reality is, that's real. I can't ask you to stop being human.
Thank you, Jeff. What about tools for helping family members and their stress?
Everything that we've just talked about, it works for all humans. So if your family members are still human, even the ants, then teach them these things. The other thing that's really important, if you really want to avoidance and distraction and stop talking about cancer all the time, I always make it silly, as you've probably already picked up. I got some magic words for you, but I always tell people never tell anybody where you got them, because they are magic. And the magic words are this: you can help me the most by, and then fill in the blank. So in the case of stop talking about cancer all the time, tell your family, you can help me the most by, talk to me about everything but cancer. Or if you just finished treatment and you're trying to get your body and your mind and your life rehabbed and back, you can help me the most by, go for a walk with me when it's warm enough outside. You can help me the most by, meet me at a coffee shop that does social distancing and we'll wear a mask. The reason that those words really are magic is because for 99% of people with cancer, their family, their friends, their social work network, they want to know how to help you, but they have no idea. That's why you get those bizarre stories about, people in their life, that great uncle that passed away from a brain tumor and you had breast cancer. You're like, first of all, I don't need to hear about that. And second of all, I don't want to hear about that. They're just trying to connect with you, but they don't know how. So teach them. You can help me the most by, fill in the blank. And the next step of that is ask people to do what is their strength. So if you have an uncle that's great at fixing things and you can help me the most by, can you change the lock on my front door for me? Versus another uncle that he can't fix anything, but he's a great listener. You could help me the most by, meet me for coffee. So when you tap into people's strengths, first of all, they're happy to help, and then they feel good because you're tapping into their strengths. So how do you help family and friends? Tell them what you learned tonight about how to manage stress, and then teach them how to help you by using those words. You can help me the most by.
Thank you, Jeff. That was a really comprehensive answer. There was one more chat in the question, one more question in the chat here, just about recognizing stress early. So there might be a disconnect between stress buildup and mounting stress, and just how do we address, or how do we pay attention and know that stress is building, and how to recognize and address that early?
Yes, that is so crucial. You know, I'm going to share with you some research in the field of psychology, and this is just research. I'm not saying anybody's having this, but in the area of anger management, a lot of people that have that problem, they would always say, 1 second I'm fine, and the next second I just explode. Well, when the researchers followed these people around, they actually found that what was happening to these people is a series of little tiny stressors that were just frustrating and irritating them, but they were so small they weren't registering on their radar. So it's kind of like, you know, I'm driving to work and traffic's awful, and then I stop over and get a coffee, and I asked for sugar and cream and they didn't put either in it, and then I get there and somebody's parked in my parking spot, and then I park in a different spot, and when I get out of my car I step in a mud puddle, and then, you know, my badge doesn't work to let me into the building, and I get to my desk and my computer won't boot up, and I can't, you know, I'm late for a meeting because of all these things. Each one of those things individually doesn't really register. But, you know, back before COVID, rush hour traffic was rush hour traffic. You know, getting a coffee order wrong gets a coffee order wrong. So how does this address with stress? Well, unfortunately, I have to give you another task to do because that's how it works. But the reality is, when I have people come to me clinically and they say that they kind of stress sneaks up on them and they don't know how to manage it, I actually tell them, every hour on the hour, check in with yourself. How am I doing? And it's real easy now. We got all sorts of alarms on our watches and our phones, or if you're just sitting watching TV at the top of the hour, check in and say, how do I feel right now? Two things often happen when people actually do this. When you ask the people, well, how do you think you're going to feel? They're like, you know, with this cancer stuff, I have bad days every day. But by checking in with yourself, if you check in and you're like, you know what, I'm kind of tense. I can feel my shoulders are rising because my neck muscles are. The next question, obviously, is why? What is stressing me, and what do I need to do about it? And by checking in, that way you can pluck out those tiny little stressors that by themselves you can manage. But you get, you know, that old saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. That's what we're talking about. So that's how you do it. You check in, and then you implement your stress reduction tool that will help you in that moment with that particular stressor.
Great, thank you. Great practical tip. We've just received one last one here, and then we'll turn it over to Lissa to do the close. But this is a question about suggestions for rebooting or reconnecting with a friend or relative that you've taken a break from while undergoing cancer treatment. Great question, Connie. Thanks for submitting that one.
Yes, that is a fabulous question. It really falls down to your communication style. And how do you want to communicate with them? You know, everyone thinks that we have to talk to somebody. Well, you don't. Maybe you send them a text. Maybe you send them an email. Heck, maybe you send them a letter. Who knows? I see the mailman walking up and down the sidewalks every once in a while. Or you can call them, or you can meet them somewhere. The real key, this is something that's actually kind of important. You know, when we think about our physical strength, nobody really questions when one woman is faster than another, or one man can pick up a bigger rock than another. We all expect each other to have different strength physically. But the reality is we all think we have the same emotional strength, and we don't. So some people that care about you or were friends find out you have cancer, they just can't handle it. And they just have to step back, or they choose to step back. And we kind of, and that hurts people's feelings. And in some cases, you feel a bit betrayed because we all think we have the same emotional strength and we don't. So in this case, keep that in mind and reach out to this person. And you could even use the magic words. Hey, we haven't talked in quite a while. You could help me the most by, let's talk on the phone. I'll call you Tuesday at 11 unless you tell me otherwise. And by doing that kind of thing, by reaching out and remembering, we all don't have the same emotional strength. And sometimes when you're diagnosed with cancer, the people in your life kind of react funny. And oftentimes they're embarrassed. But that would be like me embarrassed because I can't pick up the same big rock as the guy next to me. So that's what I'd recommend. Use the magic words, reach out in a way, because if it was a hostile kind of, or an angry argument kind of breakup, well, a text message or an email. That way, if they don't respond, they're kind of, saying no is an answer too. So, or not saying anything is an answer too. So that's also one way to keep it safe for everybody, is just reach out in a way that everybody could be safe. So there's kind of a whole bunch of ideas right in that answer. Again, another comprehensive answer, which is Kaya's code word for Jeff, you're talking too much. Shut up. We're trying to close this thing down.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all of this really wonderful content. I've seen a lot of great comments in the chat box, people saying this is really practical, helpful information, lots of great, valuable tools. So thank you so much for being here and taking the time to dig into some of these kind of difficult topics with us. And then next week, we're going to be hearing from the wonderful folks over at the Earl E. Bakken Center for Spirituality and Healing at the University of Minnesota to talk about mindfulness and guide us through some mindful movement exercises and a short guided meditation. So it'll be a great opportunity to build on some of those tools that we talked about and learned about a little bit tonight.